Hare Krishna, I don't think that we can hear Giri Govardhan Prabhu.
Oops. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Giri Varadari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Giri Varadari Ashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we've got 10th canto, chapter 51. We're coming towards the end of that chapter, and text 56 and 57. And so 56 says, this is a Muchukunda speaking. He's has well, he was a famous king who was so powerful he was helping out the devas in heaven, fighting the asuras, and he did that for so long, and he was so tired they gave him a benediction to sleep for so long, and he was sleeping for so long the yugas passed, and so he woke up out of time, and but fortunately Krishna was there, and he was reconsidering his life and deciding that he was going to now his life in this world was over, and he wanted to approach Krishna. So that's what's happening here. He's speaking to Krishna in a kind of prayerful manner. And so it's Muchukunda speaking. Therefore, O Lord, having put aside all objects of material desire, which are bound to the modes of passion, ignorance, and goodness, I'm approaching you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for shelter. You are not covered by mundane designations. Rather, you are the supreme absolute truth, full in pure knowledge and transcendental to the material modes. And the purport here says the word nirgunam, which indicates that the Lord's existence is beyond the dualities of material nature. One might argue that the Lord Krishna's body is made of material nature, but here the word advayam refutes that argument. There is no duality in Lord Krishna's existence. His eternal spiritual body is Krishna, and Krishna is God. And then 57, he continues and he says, for so long I have been pained by troubles in this world and have been burning with lamentation. My 6 enemies, here in the word for word, it says the 5 senses and the mind, and are never satisfied, and I can find no peace. Therefore, O giver of shelter, O supreme soul, please protect me. O Lord, in the midst of danger, I have by good fortune approached your lotus feet, which are the truth, and which thus make one fearless and free from sorrow. So I'm going to focus today on the descriptions of Krishna that he gives in 56. He uses these 3 words here, a couple of them which have been mentioned in the purport. There's niranjanam, and the word for word says free from mundane designations, or it can just mean any kind of designations. Nirgunam, here it says transcendental to the material modes, and that makes perfect sense in context, because Muchukunda has mentioned, sattva, raja, and tamas, and saying that you're beyond those things. Everything that here is these are the famous 3 modes of material nature, the gunas. But guna also just means quality, right? So he's without qualities, and so therefore it's mentioned that usually, and we say material qualities, and we'll explain why. And then so he's a niranjanam, nirgunam, and advayam, non-dual. He's not 2, or 1. Usually people will say that oneness, or just the literal translation here is without being 2. Advayam. Dvaya means 2. Dwa is 2. So not being 2, non-dual. That's his description of Krishna. And because it's, there's a lot of understanding in various traditions, right, of ultimate oneness and what that seems like and looks like, and so here Krishna, even though he has, right, we have descriptions of him, we can designate many things about him. He wears his pitambara dhoti, he has his flute and his peacock feather, and he's a cowherd boy. We can say many things about him, and he has many, many qualities, right? He has amazing personality, so many other things. He exhibits so many different qualities. So he has many gunas, and he has many designations. And he's there, but it seems like he's surrounded by he has many expansions, right? There's all the Vishnu forms and all the other avatars. He himself can take many forms at once. Right? When he's in Dwarka, he separates into individual forms and goes to each of his palaces. And so it's strange that he would be called, right? So how does he fit the these three things, Niranjanam, Nirgunam, and Advayam? And why? Why is it this way? So our one of our core teachings is that there's, we call it a simultaneous oneness and difference. Because usually when we think of oneness or non-duality, the thought is that there's something kind of homogeneous. There's a, that has no, you can't speak about it. You can't say anything. It has no qualities. It just is. It's like the sum total of all being is usually how people think of that sort of thing. There's just a ball of light or something. People imagine it in different ways, but you can't have things, you can't have qualities, you can't have activities, you can't have all the things that Krishna is having, but Krishna has this. And so the way we understand that is that Krishna is existence itself. One of his qualities is that there's sat, there's existence. And so everything that's existing, so it's interesting when you talk about oneness and difference, you have to be careful of equivocation on oneness, because we often will think of oneness as kind of just being blended together, right? So everything that exists, material world, spiritual world, everything is Krishna. It's his power of existence. And so that means, space and time. Krishna appears to be in a certain space. We see the cover of the first canto of the Bhagavatam, and you see the map of reality. And up in the transcendental world, there's Goloka Vrindavan, and you see Krishna standing there, and moving around. But in the Isha Upanishad, it tells us, right, that space doesn't have any meaning for Krishna. It says that while remaining in one place, the Lord can catch up to anybody who's running without moving and staying in one place, because he's omnipresent. So Krishna, he only appears to exist in time and space. That time and space is his. It's part of his existence. And so if Krishna disappeared, if there was no more Krishna, everything else would disappear. Sometimes the Prabhupada uses the example of the sun and the sunshine, but the sun also is in space and seems to radiate. So anything that can exist is Krishna's part of Krishna. He's the source of that. He's why it's existing. He's the source and sustenance. That's him. But only Krishna, the way Prabhupada puts it one time, he says that nothing is different from Krishna. And because it's part of it. It can't exist without him. It's him. But those things are not completely Krishna. So nothing truly is Krishna save and except his transcendental form. So Krishna, in his form, he is that source of everything, the foundation of everything. And so only Krishna is completely Krishna, but everything else also is Krishna. So there's not two things. There's only Krishna. If you took away everything else, Krishna could make it come back into existence again easily. And if you removed Krishna, everything else would disappear. So that's the style of oneness that we're dealing with here. And it's important, right? And because it's interesting that, in this dimension, we really we have what we have described here in the 57th verse, which Yukunda is saying that, there's I've been pained by troubles and have been burning with lamentation. My 6 enemies are never satiated, and I can find no peace. So, like, peace, it's like if we could have some peace, a lot of spiritual endeavor is aimed towards having peace, because in this dimension, there's no peace. There's not enough peace. We need more and more of it, and there's always troubles. There's reversals, and there's happiness is not intrinsic. It doesn't seem it's extrinsic. We have to go and find it, and it's a battle that's very difficult. So there's an intrinsic emptiness, really, in this dimension, because of it's a kind of virtual reality. And so generally people are moving towards higher and higher levels of inner peace and contentment, and legitimately so. But then oftentimes then the idea is, simply there's different visions of this, either ceasing to exist altogether, or merging into the Brahmajyoti, into the light, where you don't feel separated, you feel connected, and there's peace, there's no problem. And so that's that is an upgrade from our current situation. But Krishna is very intelligent, and so he has discovered, or I guess he probably figured out from the beginning, that there's something better than peace, because in one sense peace is boring. It's boring. And so he's discovered something that's better than peace. And so it looks a little bit like the dimension we're in now. It has some of the qualities, has some of the characteristics of the situation we're in now, but the emptiness that we have here, the kama, the desires that we have here, are transformed into an superabundance. So that so you can have dissatisfaction, and you can have satisfaction. Like I said, it says the Bhagavad Gita says the soul is prasanatma, fully satisfied, or atmarama, just happy in itself. So you can have intrinsic happiness. You can have what passes for happiness in this dimension when we try to fulfill the desires, and then you can have a third thing which isn't well known, and that's a superabundance where the soul is overflowing, and that takes a stimulus. And the stimulus is Krishna, who's the all attractive. And so Krishna has decided, he could just be a homogeneous ball of light and be perfectly happy. He could do that. And I mean, Prabhupada even he talks that when he was giving classes in 26 Avenue in 66, he talked like that. He said that God was one and became many. There's a verse in the Upanishads that talk about that. He said, why did he become many? And he just gave a simple example. He said that on the days when everybody would come for the public programs, he says, I'm here all the time, but when you come, I'm so much happier. So Krishna came up with the idea of divine love. So love is kind of a difficult topic from where we are here. Love oftentimes seems to bring pain afterwards. People, somebody like Muchukunda may speak about love in the same kind of words he has here. He just says frustration and lamentation, and his senses are never satisfied. Is it because the understanding of love here oftentimes is mixed with desire. So love is something that you have an object of love which somehow satisfies an emptiness in you. And there's also, if we have some genuine love, we'll want the other person to be happy. You want the happiness of the other person. If there's a lot of love, You can, as it said, you can love someone enough to let them go. That you want their welfare, even if there's no interaction between the two of you. They're not giving you anything, but they somehow have made an impression on you that you see them as valuable in and of themselves, irrespective of any type of connection, personal connection you may have with them. So that's a little hint of what's happening in the spiritual side of things. And so in the spiritual side of things, right, and of course it starts with Krishna, who's the all attractive. And so beings that can come in contact with Krishna, they can experience his all attractiveness, his beauty and charm and all these things. And that is such and I mean, we experience it a little bit, right? If we chant Hare Krishna, we see the deities, we feel something happening. When we are, have prasadam, the different ways that we can connect with Krishna makes us happy, makes us come alive to some degree. So this is like a little tiny taste, a little bit of what it's like for someone who can encounter Krishna. It's mentioned in the Madhurya Kadambini that when somebody first comes face to face with Krishna, it says, first of all, the two eyes aren't enough, and they wish their whole body could be eyes, because and like, similar to what Rupa Goswami says about the holy name, right? He wants to have millions of tongues and millions of ears, so it can be done through the holy name too. But when Krishna appears to one's vision, it says the whole being wants to become eyes because it's just too much to take in. It's so beautiful. And it says then the person passes out. It's just overwhelming. And then while they're passed out, is lying on the ground, the scent of Krishna's body, and it's it's a combination of musk and the blue lotus is how it's compared to, and it enters into their nose, and then they want to have two nostrils is not enough. They want to be, have noses all over their body, and it blows their mind so much that they pass out again, and then Krishna speaks to them in a similar thing. They want to become ears, and then he touches them, and that says then he gives them the power to behold him, through sight and sound and smell and all these things simultaneously without passing out. It takes a special power to be able to do that. And so if you kind of extrapolate from the times you've been as happy as possible, the most wonderful kirtan you've had, or whatever it is, experiencing Krishna consciousness, and extrapolate that out, as far as you possibly can, that gives you a little hint of what persons who have Krishna prema feel like when they encounter Krishna. And it's a life-changing experience. That you, once having seen Krishna like that, you're never the same. And so because you are so surcharged with delight, that there's nothing you need any longer. You're more than peaceful. You're more than satisfied. The only thing you want now is you feel so indebted to Krishna for being so extraordinary. And so there's the great Catholic mystic Saint Teresa of Avila. She has this one place where she talks about why advanced people serve the Lord, and she really helped me to understand bhakti. And she said how they don't do it for any kind of personal consideration, but he says, but rather for the satisfaction of their love, and such love, she says, causes works of a thousand kinds. So just because of the appreciation, the love that people have for Krishna, and how just his existence makes everything different, the devotees feel a compulsion, a burning need to want to do something for him, to make him happy. They're already beyond any happiness they could have ever imagined. It's blown their minds past anything they could have previously conceived. So there's no unhappiness there. And so there's a burning need to do something in return. And that love is so pure and priceless that it captures Krishna's heart. And for him, he also then feels Like there's no that he doesn't want to do anything except for pleasing the devotees. And so, in order for that to work to the highest degree, there are interesting things happening there. Right? There seems to be lamentation, there seems to be fear, there seems to be worry. It's not always peaceful. Right? There's separation. Right? Here, even though Krishna is Advayam, he's one because it's all Krishna. He makes apparent differences, right? And so the devotees and Krishna can be separated, and they both suffer under that. But you'll notice, like in the Shikshastakam, it says that the whole universe appears empty. Shunyayatam jagat sarvam, the whole world seems to be empty. But they don't say that they feel empty. Right? The world seems empty because if Krishna is not there, the one thing that is their burning desire to please him in some way, to repay him for making the world unimaginably wonderful, isn't there. So that's why when we're reading previously about Uddhava, when he was coming to Vrindavan and he was trying to pacify the gopis by saying how Krishna is omnipresent. How can there be separation? Right? But for those who are loving Krishna, have prema, it's Krishna, the form Krishna, not just everywhere Krishna, that matters, because that's what has caused them to come alive, and he's the one that they want to please. And so it's not when there's separation and lamentation in the spiritual world, it's not like, oh, Krishna is it's making me happy and giving me life, and now I'm empty. Because once having seen Krishna, that's it. You're overflowing with joy. The only thing you're lacking is the ability to reciprocate that what you've received from Krishna just by his existence. And that's a burning desire. But it's a desire coming from not only fullness, but more than that. More than fullness. There's no emptiness there. The dynamics are different. And because of that, it says there's a dynamic where it's that love is increasing. When Krishna receives that love, his heart, expands even more, and he becomes more wonderful. And the devotees become more wonderful, and it just comes back and forth. It's something that allows Krishna to be fully immersed in for eternity, at least as long as anything has existed. He's felt that to be sufficient for him. And so like a uniform, homogeneous oneness is an upgrade from our present circumstances, and having more peace is a good thing from our present circumstances. But it's not. There's this higher conception that I don't know who could have conceived of such a thing except for Krishna. But he does. And so in Vrindavan, you see, sometimes Krishna wants to see the devotees and he can't see them. The devotees want to see him and they can't see. There's separation, even though there's oneness, because that nurtures everything. Right? That time when Krishna is longing to please his devotees, and the devotees are longing to please him. I think of it like as a dam. There's the desire to please the other, and because of what's been done for them, it's like flowing like a river. But then when there's separation, it gets dammed up. The river can't stop flowing, but it gets dammed up. It can't be expressed, so it builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up. Then finally, when there's meaning, like the dam bursts, and there's all this pent up desire to please Krishna, and Krishna has this pent up desire to please his devotees. And so this wave of separation and meeting that characterizes the Leela in the spiritual world are designed for that purpose, to as an engine to make it intensify and increase and become more overwhelming and captivating. It captivates everyone together. So I guess a simple analogy of why, varieties, even though it's an overall oneness, can be useful. It's like you think about it. If somebody has a tremendous musical capability, musical talent. Say they're a tremendous pianist or something, right? By a lot of conventional understandings, that if you it, that just that creative power would be the real value, and any composition you could make would be limited, right? As you say you can't have qualities in the one, because that quality is limited, and but the one is supposed to be unlimited, right? So it leaves you a couple of options. You can just not play anything and just have that potentiality, or you could play all the keys at once, right? And that doesn't make very a beautiful composition, right? Is limited. It's different than other compositions. It has individual notes. It's not playing all the notes at once, but it's beautiful. And if you don't play anything at all, what a waste of potential. So Krishna he remains one, but he has variety within the simultaneous oneness and difference, which allows for this beautiful expression of prema, which otherwise will never be tasted. Right? So Krishna is smarter, when we just kind of use our intellect to try to understand that, and at the same time, he's the source of everything and could create anything more and make anything more he wants. He has exactly what he wants. So he's not different from his qualities make for the prema to go, but he still has so many other forms if he wants. It doesn't matter. And he also can just be one. He has all those capacities open to him. Prabhupada mentions that one of the arguments he gives, against um, the argument that having a form of any kind is a limitation, is that by saying that God can't have a form, that makes a limit. That's a limit also. By saying it's not possible. Right? So that's so anyway, so even though Krishna is beyond designations, he's one, and he's nirguna without the qualities. Uh, uh, it still fits, but it does in a way that you wouldn't generally conceive of, and that's what allows this allows for his full expression of himself. This is what he understands. Krishna can have anything he wants. He could have a whole different world if he wants. He could be different if he wants. He could be anything that he wants, because it's everything is just him. It's all his power of existence. He could change everything right now easily. He could be a different being. He could have a different world. He could do everything different. He has that power. That's how there's oneness there. But he's eternal. He has all knowledge and he has all power. And so having those three things, time to perfect it, and although it was instantaneous, I think he can conceive of any possible thing, and he can do any possible thing. So given those three, like for us, if you gave me all power, my ability to envision isn't so great, and I'm also very limited in time. So I wouldn't come up with something so great necessarily. If I don't have power, I can't make my great vision come into being. If I have even more limited time, I probably can't do it. So Krishna has, there's no limitation on him in time or ability or ability to conceive or ability to do. So what he's done, and that's enough to captivate him. I mean, it pulls him out of his understanding. This is the specialty of Vrindavan, is that he doesn't want to be God under those circumstances, because he can love harder. Right? If he knew what's going on, if he had omniscience and omnipotence and was acting in that way in Vrindavan, then he couldn't feel the same love towards his mother when she feeds him. Right? he couldn't feel the same love with his friends because he's on a different platform. So he also can experience separation. He can separate. He can have anxiety. He can have all these things that make the love more flavorful and more wonderful. So he in Vrindavan, for the most part, he's not thinking of himself as God. He's just the friend of these people. That's why he loves to be. He's named so many times, right, after his devotees. He's Nanda Nandana and Yashoda Nandana because they're so dear to him. So, all right, so we're kind of past or getting to the time we should break off here and hear from you and have questions and comments and further clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Giri Govardhan Prabhu. Wonderful class, saturated in wisdom and realization about the nature of the spiritual world. Thank you so much for taking us there. I'm driving, so dear co-hosts, please moderate the Q&A, the love and exchanges. Moderate the love and exchanges.
Jeffrey Actor Prabhu has a question in the chat. I think it would be really great if you asked that, Jeffrey Prabhu.
The question from Kartik Prabhu, you mean?
Oh, I thought it was yours, but
No.
whichever person, sir.
I think Kartik Prabhu has a great question here. Kartik, if you'd like to read that, you can.
Sure. Sure, I can read. So my question is, that we say Krishna is perfect and we are his parts and parcels. So, so why are we imperfect and incomplete? Like
Well,
in Ishopanishad, they say, that all emanations from him are perfect
Yeah.
and complete. So it's kind of confusing.
Well, we are, but we're in an artificial condition. And so what we have right now is it's a kind of the most thoroughgoing type of I compare it to a virtual reality, although it's not that's not exactly true. But we have this equipment over us. Like if you wear a virtual reality headset, we have equipment over us, and that we have our identification, the ahankara, the false ego, the intelligence, the mind, and this physical body that covers us, and it's absorbing our attention. And so like even in the Matrix, right, where they would plug people in, put a little plug in their head and connect it to the computer, that just virtualized their body and their surroundings. Their mind, their memories, their identities remained. They were the same person inside and outside of the Matrix. Well, there's a power called Prakshepatmaka, Avaranatmaka, that has us forget who we really are. And so we just have a certain kind of dull consciousness that perceives what we receive through the virtual reality suits that we have, the senses and the mind. And it's absorbing us. I don't know if you have you ever, in your life been so absorbed in, say, a movie or something, that when it turns off, it takes you like a few seconds to kind of come back to yourself and, oh, I'm in a theater, here I am. Right? So it's like it's only more powerful. We get absorbed. It's called what is abhiveshanata, isn't it? Yeah. We're being absorbed, fully absorbed. Our attention gets fully absorbed into this virtual reality that there's a world here. It's an actual real world. It's not the real world, and we have these suits by which we can interact with it. These very elaborate virtual reality suits. And so we're so caught up in that. Get somebody who's deep in their phone, right? You can't find them. I had a friend when I was in college, and this is back when you had, cathode ray tubes for TVs, so small, and he would, if the TV would turn on across the room, it would just, you could first you'd feel a little tension come into his body. You'd be talking to him. I was talking to him, and you could see a little tension, and then it's like this magnetic force, that would make him turn towards the TV, and then this would be the expression, just gone, and so it would take some doing to bring him out of that. Come back, here you are, so we have that experience even within the within the virtualization of being absorbed in something and forgetting yourself. And so that's what we have done. we're in this deep level of forgetfulness. And so we're still there, but we're like the little kid who's so absorbed in the video game, and mother's trying to say, hey, come on, do your homework. And it can't be reached. Mother's calling their name, and it's echoing through the hills, their name, and they don't recognize anybody's there. And so that's our problem. We're fully absorbed, and that's it. So we're not ourselves. We're not ourselves. So that perfection is there, but we're checked out. And so what happens is in Krishna consciousness is the soul starts to become awakened gradually, right? And so it becomes more like a lucid virtual reality. Like the people sometimes feel have lucid dreams. In our dreams also we're the same people we are now. But then some people can kind of be lucid and understand that, oh, actually I'm dreaming, And so that begins to happen when the soul begins to wake up. We can see how we're dreaming this, or how it's a virtualized situation. And so it becomes more, and then eventually, it can come out full, who we really are. We actually can wake up. So we start the sleep gets lighter and lighter and lighter. But that's why. So our innate perfection is now so distracted it can't manifest itself in this way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kartik Prabhu, for the question, and Giri Govardhan Prabhu for answering that. And now Jeffrey Prabhu does have his hand up for a question.
All right, Krishna Prabhu. Thank you. I was thinking while you were speaking and when you were telling the story of wanting to see, so wanting to be covered in eyes, wanting to hear, to be covered in ears. And I'm going to continue with the science fiction sort of theme here. Okay. Sorry, it's the Generation X Leela that I am immersed in. But in Blade Runner, there's this phrase that comes up, more human than human. And the idea is that these artificial intelligences have the ability to become more human than a human. And the interesting thing in the plot is that the person that utters this phrase is their creator. And so it got me thinking, like, the power of God is that when we are cognizant of our constitutional position and in loving exchange with God, then we are empowered in this way to be more human than human. And not in some sort of superiority, but in some sort of depth of capability. And primarily in the depth of our capability to love. And I don't know what Blade Runner has anything to do with that, but it just made me think of that phraseology, and it's pretty interesting, and I appreciate you for teasing that out this morning. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was a nice comment. I think also actually we're not even we're empowered in some way, but also we're innately powerful. It's interesting. Prabhupada, there's a lecture in 1966. He talks about how powerful the soul is, right? Because we're little amshas of Krishna in one way. Because the soul has tremendous power, he says. And so right now, so that because we're distracted from that, then we seem so powerless.
Thank you, Prabhu. I love that. Not only are we empowered, but we are innately powerful. Thank you.
Because you can see even in the higher planetary systems, you have people have all the yogic powers and the devas that can control cosmic stuff. What can the soul do? Yeah. But in Vrindavan, of course, those powers are not so important because it's love. That's the power that matters. But I heard Dina Bandhu tell a story years ago that he said that Kamsa at one point I guess he was concerned that all of his guys were dying over there in Vrindavan. He wanted to see what the heck was going on. And as he came across from Mathura to the border, he was disguised as a woman, I think, and these old ladies of Braj beat him up and sent him home. So because they're spiritual bodies, he's got a material body. So even the demons have no power that way. So the souls have tremendous power.
Hare Krishna, we also have a question in the chat from Narottamam Nitai Das Prabhu.
Yes.
And he said, this concept of yukta viragya, of giving everything in service of Krishna, can you give some examples of how we can take the intensity and absorption of festival times, like Kartik, for example, and how we can extend that to other months to really taste the nectar continuously, so we could get a glimpse of what of our acharyas experience?
Wow, that's an amazing question. Of course, that happens. I think really something that's got to happen is sometimes when we have that enthusiasm, we simply try to ride the enthusiasm. And I think what really needs to happen, there has to be an internal component. Because we devotional service means there's a reason why Prabhupada uses both of those words. And so there's our feeling towards Krishna, our anukulyena, and then there's the actions. And so a lot of our enthusiasm comes from, like maybe in the festival, because of the association, we had a deeper connection with Krishna. We felt that at that point. And so that should change our faith. I think we need to reflect on those times when it was a beautiful kirtan or an awesome this or an awesome that, and use that to keep remembering why it is we're connecting ourselves with Krishna. What is our purpose? What are we really thinking? What are our desires? What's causing us to do that? And so when we have an experience of Krishna that's greater than we have before, we need to digest that. So I think sometimes we just try to ride that wave, and we find it kind of gradually slows down. But I think it makes a permanent change in us if we somehow reflect upon that and take that into our hearts and say, wow, Krishna really is real, and he's more wonderful than I believe I had knowledge of before. And and there's it's so much possible here, and trying to internalize that and integrate that. Then it may still not be continuous. That's a certain stage of bhakti, when we have nishta and then ruchi, where it's very steadily powerful, where you have taste all the time. But that lays the foundation for those future stages, and it will leave a permanent impression that will keep coming out, even if it fades away a little bit. So I really think we don't think enough about the internal aspects of our devotion.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Narottamam Nitai Das Prabhu, for that amazing question, and Giri Govardhan Prabhu for answering that. I was wondering, just to follow up on that, so what I hear that you're saying is that it's not just about having these amazing experiences at festivals, but it's also about taking the time for us to maybe sit down, I don't know, like write down our experience, like really process it, perhaps kind of just really like critically think like the why and how we can affirm it. Is that correct? Or
yeah, you could do that. Yeah. And any way that works for you. But I think some type of reflection, because it really is, devotion. It's our faith, it's our conviction. It's all these things. We're the conch is blowing, but yeah. The simple answer is yes.
Thank you, Giri Govardhan Prabhu. Perhaps you could stay for the afterglow, because it looks like Bhima Prabhu still has his hand up for a question.
Turn the other way now, right? Jami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Kami.
Okay, so thank you so much, Adi Purusha Prabhu, for the darshan. And we are officially in the afterglow now. So Bhima Prabhu, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Haribo, am I being received?
Yeah,
Yes,
we can
we
we
can
can hear you
hear you.
fine. Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Haribo Prabhu, it is always with great, it is with great happiness that when I hear you speak, because of the convincing nature of how you speak and draw in elements from whether it be science, empiricism to Shastra, and to synthesize them all together. For some of us who like those toys that, you know, when you're a kid, sticky toys you throw against the wall and they eventually like just kind of work their way down and fall off the wall. Knowledge tends to be that way with me, you know, the fool that learns by experience only. And I was wondering if you could make parse out the idea that if we simply engage in service, maybe we don't understand Krishna's omnipotence or omnipresence in our life, not only as super soul guiding us, but also as Krishna, Govinda, reciprocating with us. That when we engage in service, especially in the service that is most pleasing, as he said in the Bhagavad Gita, one who shares this knowledge with others, is most dear to me. That I know that in my life that, you know, I've, just rebellious streak. It's just one long 40, 60-year rebellious streak. But when I've been lucky enough to be in the association of fully engaged devotees, by virtue of momentum, I have been swept along in that service. And in those services, I was allowed to experience a reciprocation, a direct personal reciprocation that we would call, you know, personal little miracles that we have. Like, wow, that was you, Krishna, who, you know, warned me not to do this, that whispered in my ear. That was you, Krishna, that allowed me to escape this situation. That was you, Krishna, that arranged for these devotees that I needed in my life to help me with this service to come into my life and to help me with this service. It was you, Krishna, who, despite all my trying and thinking that I thought I knew the place that I wanted to engage in this service, to, you know, some kind of facility, that you sort of like said, well, I appreciate the fact that you're looking for a facility, but this is my idea. And then he does something. He gives you a facility that you didn't even think of. So can you speak to that? That for some of us whose knowledge falls off the wall like a sticky toy, how important becoming part of Prabhupada's mission to share will give us this revelation that is needed to build a strong faith. That is the necessary prerequisite for praying.
So, if just to summarize it, because of your kind of direct experience with Krishna in different ways, he managed to kind of manipulate your innate rebelliousness, even though that's a deep part of your nature, because he's made himself known in various ways that's even caused a transformation in you. So so what I would say is, I think intellectual knowledge and all the information and stuff is really overrated. And people who are good at that, they can fulfill their function, and they can explain things and do this kind of, but oftentimes we kind of equate that with advancement. Like, I can answer all the questions now. I got all the questions. Now ask me any question. I'll tell you all the answers. But what's happening in your heart? See, and so you're saying, okay, the knowledge is kind of sliding down the wall, but Krishna is making an impression on you that's changing you. And so, in one sense, that's all you would need to communicate to somebody else. And you say, if somebody else has lots of questions, hell, we'll talk to this person over here, But if you can communicate to people how Krishna has touched you and changed your life, this is powerful. It's more powerful than giving them information that may go over their head. That's a powerful. So by your presence, you can change. You can help people. So I wouldn't, if the knowledge slides down the wall, don't worry about it. But remember how Krishna has touched you, and so you can refer people if they have questions. Yeah, here's an egghead over here. Send them to the egghead over here to tell you all the information. But if Krishna has touched your heart, that's what you need to communicate, and that'll be very powerful for people who you connect with.
I do have to say that as a caveat that the only way that Krishna has touched me is with the back of his hand. And I'm so glad to receive it, because it's like I knew what I was doing. I knew it. I knew he wouldn't be pleased, and then he shows me how displeased he is by either letting loose Maya's mechanical retribution, or personally saying, "Okay, you want to mess with me? You want to test me? Let me show you how much I can." How much you need a good you need a good whooping. And then it comes and you're like, well, that hurt, but I know you're for real. I can feel you with my black eye.
It's beautiful.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bhima Prabhu, and thank you, Giri Govardhan Prabhu, for reflecting that back with such joy and spirit of gratitude. Does anybody else have any questions or reflections before we finish today's class? Yes, Adi Purusha Prabhu has his hand up.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful class. All we can say is wow, So cool. You glorified Krishna in such an excellent way, and his loving exchanges with the devotees and their love for him. We had an experience that might be an illustration, because we can only extrapolate from what Krishna gives us in this life, at this point, before we, actually see what you're talking about. We were with one guest, and she had her daughter here. The little girl was maybe 6 years old, and we went in the vehicle, and the mother had to chastise the child. And it was sweet, but you could see the child was impacted. So the mother got in the car to drive, and the little girl was in the back with me. And the little girl said to her, "Mama, I love you so much it hurts." I was like, oh, God. She got the sauce, just got chastised. The mother stopped the car, got out of the car in the middle of the street, went around to the side door, opened the car, and gave the daughter a hug. And I was like, I don't know much about love, but I mean, there's something there that's sort of like a glimpse of what the spiritual world might be. And in the Japanese tradition, they have these geisha girls. You know geisha?
Yeah.
And our nature, our essence is that we are feminine.
Hmm.
We are meant to be pleasure giving. Please Krishna. Krishna is Purusha, he's the enjoyer. But we are the pleasure giving. And that's how we become satisfied, by pleasure giving. And they train these girls to be pleasing to men. I don't know what they do exactly, but the point is that we're being trained to be doing things to please Krishna and show our love. And we're like transcendentally geisha girls. I don't know. Maybe this is much of a contribution, but we're just trying. What could we say to your class? It was so good, but we're just trying to, we love the fact that there's some interaction at the end of the class where people can share their hearts and we can hear other people, and everybody doesn't get reduced to like wallpaper, and somebody's just like
Exactly. Yeah,
hour
exactly.
monologue, and then they say, "Oh, I have 30 seconds. I'm sorry," and then any questions, and everybody just becomes like silent. And it's a wonderful class that people give, but sometimes the interaction, I think, gives it more life.
Yeah, truly.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, that was a great example, though. So oftentimes Prabhupada talks about, love being the mother for the child, but in this case, the child for the mother is maybe even the more intense things. That's a beautiful example. That was great. I'm going to remember that one. We have we have parampara, which means we can steal from others. So I'm going to remember that one and use that one. Stealing from you.
What do you call it? Plagiarism? Plagiarism is recommended.
Parampara means it's legitimate. You just can't say you created it, but you can use it.
Beautiful. Prabhupada, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you so much, Adipurusha Prabhu. And geishas were actually the most learned and beautiful of women, and they were actually able to kind of do kind of like what how Krishna and Balaram, when they went to go study from their guru, they learned all the different arts. So they would learn all the arts, and they knew how to do all the different arts and sing the best, and they were the best ones in terms of like reciting poetry and everything. They were just really, really like just really varied in terms of their talents. So
in the mood of giving pleasure to the person they're trying to please,
Yeah, exactly. They were in the mood of service. So yeah, if we can be varied in terms of our talents and the ways that we bring about pleasure to Krishna, that would be great. So Ananda Bihari Prabhu, are you around so that we can finish up? Because I have to start getting ready to go to work. Okay, great. Okay, excellent. So if nobody else has anything else to share, I think we could probably finish. I have to go. Thank you so much, Giri Govardhan Prabhu, and everyone else.